Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Oh, we got a lot to catch up on, but I gotta tell you, there is a lot to go through with this Charlie Kirk case today. So I am going to save the catch up on life thing until we get to the end and get through what we're here to look at today. So stick around if you want to catch up on like my summer and the cats and things like that. About the cats, there is a pretty strong probability that we will have a kitten interruption at some point in the course of this live stream. They were, of course, sleeping peacefully until right about 10 minutes ago and are now in the process of turning feral in various ways all around the room. So kind of a matter of time until yeah, we get a leap on the camera and so forth. Well, guys, Charlie Kirk. This is going to be a little bit of a step in a different direction for me, not in terms of what I plan to do with looking at the case, but just because this case is so big, it's got such political implications. It's just a little bit out of the norm from the kind of thing that I normally look at. Having said that, well, I look at criminal cases and I look at high profile criminal cases, so it certainly fits the bill in that respect. But since this is the first time I'm talking about a new case, it's very possible we'll have some new people here watching. So I do just kind of want to lay out preliminarily what I intend to do here. And I think the best way to summarize that is that I intend to give this case the classic LawTube treatment. I'm here to look at the law. I'm here to look at the legal documents. I'm here to watch the court hearings. I'm not here to do politics. I'm not here to talk about like gossip and side stories and things like that. Basically, if it's in court, I'm interested in it. If it's got a high probability of ending up in court, I might be interested in it. But this is the kind of case that's gotten so much attention that it's very likely there's going to be quite a lot of misinformation, speculation, and so forth in the coverage about it. And so I want to be kind of a counter voice to that. Focus on the court, focus on the documents. There's going to be a lot, okay? This is, as most of you probably already know, this is a capital murder case. They are seeking the death penalty. And that means it's going to be extensive. There's already somewhere north of 60-some filings on the court docket. Now, granted, a lot of those are small things, proof of services and things like that that aren't really substantively important. But I bring that up just because it goes to show what a disconnect there typically is between what you read in the news about a case and what is actually going on in court. When it comes to the kind of granular level of detail, you don't typically get that type of thing from the news coverage. So that's really what I'm here to do, is to help us walk through the case, understand what's going on in the court process, and to the extent we can, try to predict and foresee what is going to unfold and what we're going to see happen. So in terms of how I'm going to do that, if you're new to the channel, I am a criminal defense attorney. Primarily, I've been doing that for about 20 years. So I tend to look at cases through the lens of a criminal defense attorney. That does not mean everybody's innocent. Oh boy, not at all. One thing you learn as a criminal defense attorney, it's that a lot of folks you represent are not innocent. What it does mean, though, is that I look at cases from the perspective of what are likely challenges going to be, what are questions that are going to be raised, where are the parties going to be looking for reasonable doubt, where are parties going to be looking for opportunities to challenge the case. And so that's the perspective I bring, because that's my background. That's what I do. And so I tend to look at these documents from the standpoint of, hey, if this thing landed on my desk, how would I be treating it? And that's what I'm going to be doing today, because today, what we're going to be looking at is the charges and the probable cause that supported them. So, the probable cause, broadly speaking, is really all of the official factual information, allegations that we have so far about the case. This is intended to be a description of the evidence that justifies the particular charges that have been filed. In this particular case, it's a little more complicated than I'm used to because there are actually two probable cause statements. There is one that was filed by the law enforcement officer, and there is one that is kind of a restatement and with some additional information and stuff that was prepared by the prosecuting attorney. There are some minor differences between them that I think are I don't know, intriguing, maybe not, maybe nothing, but they're just points that catch my attention and kind of clue me in that this may be something that I will be wanting to keep an eye out for down the road. So, guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at this affidavit of probable cause. So this is the one, like I said, that is filed by the law enforcement officer. This is the charges that they originally arrested him on: aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. The actual charges that get filed are in the discretion of the prosecuting attorney. So these are just the ones that were recommended by law enforcement at the time that he was taken into custody. So here are the basic allegations. The following information was obtained by your affiant from police officers, multiple video recordings posted on social media websites, Utah Valley University campus surveillance cameras, and those who witnessed the incident. On September 10th, 2025, Charles James Kirk was at the Utah Valley University campus in Orem, Utah, for a political event. Orem and Provo, these are both towns that are kind of in the greater Salt Lake City, Utah metro area. They're within, 45-minute to a 1-hour drive. So there's a lot of, commuting back and forth and things like that. But these are basically what I would consider like suburban areas outlying Salt Lake City. Mr. Kirk is a conservative political activist who is scheduled to speak at an event in the courtyard area on the UVU campus. The courtyard area is to the west of the Low C Center building. According to video recordings, Charles was wearing a white t-shirt and dark pants, sitting under a white canopy in a courtyard of the campus facing to the east. The event was attended by hundreds of individuals. Okay, question number one, I would like to know, if we know, exactly how many people. Like, do we have a head count? What's our best estimate? Was there any kind of screening process for people to get in and out of this area, or was it just broadly open for people to be able to wander in and out as they pleased? Just a question that I have about that in terms of kind of bigger questions surrounding the security for the event and any kind of, like I said, vetting control that needed to happen in order to be in attendance. Charles was surrounded by people with multiple individuals to his left, right, and rear and front of the canopy. Behind the canopy was a walkway used for access to various parts of the university. Charles was holding a microphone and speaking to a crowd. While speaking into the microphone, a loud gunshot was heard at approximately 12:23 hours, and Charles appeared to have been hit in the neck. Blood was seen coming out of the left side of his neck as he fell over to his left. Guys, yes, I've seen the video. I'm absolutely not going to play the video on here for any number of reasons. It is really horrifying. It is extremely graphic. It is also out in many, many places if you are inclined to go look for it and see it if you haven't already. But yes, there has been at least one, and I think a couple different angles just from social media captures that caught the assassination as it took place. Charles was transported to the Timpanogos Regional Hospital in Orem. Charles was pronounced deceased at the hospital. Investigators reviewed the Utah Valley University surveillance cameras. While reviewing the surveillance cameras, investigators observed an individual on the rooftop of the Losi Center building on the UVU campus at the time of the shooting. Hereafter, the unidentified individual will be referred to as suspect. Based on surveillance camera footage, suspect appears to be a white male with dark-colored hair, wearing a dark-colored hat, sunglasses, a long-sleeve black shirt with a picture of an American flag, and an eagle printed on the shirt, dark-colored jeans, and white-gray shoes with white-colored shoelaces. The shoes appear to be consistent with Chuck Taylor Converse-style shoes. It's a good eye on that person. Suspect is also carrying a dark-colored backpack on his back. Suspect walks with a distinctive gait. Prior to the shooting, suspect appears to walk with a stiff right leg and at a relatively slow pace. Suspect's ability to bend his right leg appears to be restricted. Investigators were able to track suspect's movements on the UVU campus starting at approximately 11:50 hours on 9/10/2025. So we're moving into the surveillance footage, and there is so far officially just one piece of surveillance footage that the FBI released, as well as captures, screen captures from other pieces of surveillance footage. All of them appear to be sourced to the university surveillance system. That's all that's official that has been formally released at this time. There have been some other unofficial things floating around that you may have seen. TMZ, I know, has picked up several that I think were ring camera videos from the neighborhood. I think New York Post may have gotten some as well. I'm always hesitant to, like I said, kind of go into stuff that is not actually in the record in the court process for a number of reasons, but the biggest one is just because it hasn't been vetted. And in a case that is very high profile and that gets a lot of attention, it's very, very common for there to be lots of misinformation. If you were here when we talked about the Brian Koberger case, then you know what I'm talking about, very much. There's just a massive amount of misinformation that gets out into the public sphere. In that particular case, they, had to change venue and have all of these fairly detailed court hearings about, identifying specifically there were things that were lies that were in the media reports about the case. So I'm hesitant to rely on media reports. I will leave that to you to vet for yourselves. I will say, my personal opinion, at least some of the TMZ stuff does look good, largely because the clothing, it's clearly the same clothing. You can see that match up. But I don't want to really go too far down the road of, looking at stuff that is not part of the official record of the case. So we will go ahead and turn to watch the FBI surveillance video. Let me go ahead and switch us over here. So this is the video. Let me bring it up on YouTube. This is the video that has been released. I did find it quite interesting how they're able to track and zoom and kind of move the camera around here so we can see, yes, there's something in the hand. Now, they say it appears to be a rifle. It looks really hard to see for me, but that doesn't look solid. That looks like a sweatshirt or something to me. So I immediately kind of have questions about the way that the probable cause affidavit is describing the contents of the video. They are telling me it appears to be a rifle. I'm looking at it with my own eyes and saying, to me, I got to say that kind of looks like a stretch. Looks like a stretch. I don't know what you guys think, but don't know, again, if this is the only thing that is available or if it is just kind of the first thing that has been made available. Maybe there's other angles, other cameras. I would certainly expect there to be a fair amount of redundancy in a surveillance system on something like a university campus. But this is all, of course, that has been given to us officially. So, hey, look, if I'm the defense attorney and I'm watching this video, that's gonna be a question that I have. What exactly makes you think that that looks like a gun? Agree, he's on the roof. That part seems perfectly clear. So now let's go back to our probable cause affidavit. Okay, so at approximately 11:50 hours, timeline, very specific in the timeline here. Approximately 11:50 hours, a UVU surveillance camera first captured suspect walking across a grassy area north of Campus Drive at approximately 800 West. Suspect walked south through the parking lot and approached a pedestrian tunnel that runs underneath Campus Drive. Before entering the tunnel, suspect paused at the top of the stairs and pulled out what appeared to be a cell phone from his right pocket using his right hand at approximately 11:53 hours. Suspect eventually put what appeared to be a cell phone back in his right pants pocket using his right hand. Definitely got to stop, pause right here. What was he doing on his phone? They didn't give us a specific time frame. They didn't give us a description. Was he holding the phone to his ear like he's making a phone call? Was he doing something like he's texting with the phone? Is he scrolling through something? What sort of activity is he doing with the phone? We don't know. They aren't giving us any particular level of detail there. But if they got his phone, and I have to think at this point in time, they probably have his phone. Question number one, I'm going to be looking at. I'm the attorney. Hey, what was he doing at 11:53 with the cell phone? Was he contacting somebody? Was he communicating with somebody? Was he looking at a map to try to get directions? What exactly is the detail going on with this cell phone footage, the cell phone use? So I do expect that to, at some point, come out. Oh, we have our first kitty visitor here. Here's Lilith has jumped up to say hello. Hi, sweet kitty. We'll see if she's going to be nice and quiet here with me. Keep her in my lap if she will. Otherwise, nope, she's off. Surveillance captured suspect making his way toward the Low-C Center. At approximately 12:02 hours, suspect was recorded walking on the north side of the Low-C Center building, walking with the same gait as observed earlier. Okay, so first off, far as our timeline goes, we have a 9-minute gap here between pausing before going into the tunnel and then making this the cell phone. We don't have a time for when he stops and, presumably continues into the tunnel. So this gap between taking the phone out of his pocket at 11:53 and then 12:02, 9 minutes later, walking on the north side of the Low-C Center building. I want to know, is this a normal time frame you would expect for somebody to be just walking? If you were walking from the area in front of the tunnel to get to the area where he was seen, how long does that take? 9 minutes? To me, that's kind of a long time for walking. You can cover a pretty good distance in 9 minutes. Half a mile, not unrealistic at all. So that will be something that I will want to see fleshed out. I'd like a map of this. Definitely would be a helpful piece of information to help sort this together. But the reason I want to know that is because I want to know, one, again, what's he doing with the cell phone that's taking him? How long is it taking him? And two, is there anything like going on in this tunnel? Is there any other kind of activity at any point in time where he's not seen on camera? Are there opportunities for him to be meeting up with other individuals, for example? I'm going to be having these questions about just exactly how continuous is this observation of the suspect going towards the Losi Center. At approximately 12:02 hours, suspect was recorded walking on the north side of the Losi Center building, walking with the same gait as observed earlier. So this stiff-legged gait, the right foot, the right leg is not bending. It's a stiff-legged gait. Seems to be implying he's hiding the gun in his pants. That kind of makes sense. I mean, if you're not walking down the street, with a big bolt action rifle in your arm, then you have it somewhere. Where do you have it? And the options for that seem to be pretty limited. You either have the gun in its, put together intact form, and you're hiding it in some way, like maybe in your pants, or you have broken it down and maybe you're carrying it in this backpack that he's described. Depends on, a little bit of the details of the rifle. If this is a normal, like old school wood stock rifle, you can kind of only break it down so far. If it's got a folding stock, you can break it down further. The barrel can really only be broken down so far. So not necessarily clear to me, in part because we don't have an official photograph of this gun yet. We have a photograph that the New York Post has posted that they are attributing to being the rifle that was used. Hasn't been verified yet, but if that is the case, at least we do know this was a Mauser 98 30-06 bolt action rifle. So not the type of thing that you can just like fold up the stock and break it down in 2 or 3 quick moves and stuff it into your backpack. So they seem to be implying it's in his leg. Maybe, don't know. They're certainly pointing out the strange gait for a reason. Suspect. Let's see. Suspect entered the Losi Center building through a set of doors on the southeast corner of the Losi Center building. At approximately 12:15 hours, suspect was observed walking up the stairs that lead to the common area adjacent to the Losi Center building. Okay, we just talked about a weird stiff-legged gait with the right leg. So is that visible as he's walking up the stairs? Does he still have this gait as he's walking up the stairs? Normally when you walk up the stairs, you got to bend your knee. And so if the stiff-legged gait is him not bending his knee, is this now different? Well, we have a little bit of a clue to that as well because of the official videos that the FBI released, the still shots from the security footage. So let's go ahead and take a look at those now, because these again are now going to raise some questions for me. I got a few questions based on these official photos that were released. So right here we see his right leg in the second photo. His right leg is bent. Okay, that's bent. That's his right leg. Maybe the camera is mirrored. Okay, maybe it's mirrored. If it's mirrored, well, then there's the other leg, and the other leg is also bent. So he does not appear to be walking with the same stiff-legged gait as he was that they describe in the earlier part of the affidavit. I'm also looking at what he's wearing, and these are fairly slim fit jeans. I am really skeptical about being able to stuff a rifle in there. Can't say it's impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but if I'm the defense attorney and I'm looking at this, I might be inclined to try a demo, see if we can try this out. Can we put these pants on him and try to stuff the gun in there and see what it looks like? Maybe it's not the full gun. Maybe it's just the barrel. Maybe it's just a part of the gun, think there's a few different ways to interpret that. But we got bent legs here, I think is the main takeaway that I have from this photo. After they've been talking about this stiff-legged gait, implication he's got the gun stuffed in his pants, but that does not look like that is going to have pants. That's going to have a gun stuffed in those pants. Same thing with the backpack. Now we can see the backpack. This is not like, one of my first questions. Okay, you got a big 60-gallon, trekking backpack. Yeah, you might be able to stuff a rifle in that. That's a big long backpack. But this is just a pretty standard JanSport style backpack. It's pretty small. It's what, maybe 20 inches. And so it just doesn't really look like that backpack is going to be large enough to hold a broken down gun. Don't know. Once again, big question I'm going to have as a defense attorney. How does this gun break down? Show me. Let's do a demonstration. Let's break this gun down and let's see how small can we get these different components, and can they be small enough to where they could be stuffed into this backpack? The last question that I have that comes up to me, my perspective when I'm watching these images, there's somebody in the photos. Okay, there's in this third one, there's somebody down here at the bottom of the stairs that looks like, this person would have passed by. Maybe they just walked by at the bottom. Maybe they passed him on the stairs. I don't know, but there's a person there. And then here, there is clearly somebody that is on the stairs. You can see the back of the arm that he is passing on the way up. Do we know who these people are? Have these people been identified? Have these people come forward? Do we have, obviously not in these images, but other parts of the surveillance footage may be able to assist us in identifying who these people are, because these are potential witnesses. And I am, if I am at all able to, going to want to know who they are, talk to them, find out what they saw, if anything, what do they remember, if anything, and just, get as much information as we possibly can from that. So let's go ahead now and go back to our probable cause affidavit. Okay, so we just finished walking up the stairs. Suspect walked to a short concrete wall that separates the common area from the rooftop of the Low-C Center building. At approximately 12:17 hours, suspect climbed over the short wall and appeared to crouch down on the north side of the wall on the rooftop. At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect stood up and started running across the rooftop of the Low-C Center building. The notable limp from previous surveillance was absent. Okay, couple of things here. If we're calling out the absence of the notable limp in this particular section, but we didn't call it out in previous sections, it implies we saw it in all the previous sections, but that would include the stairs. We don't have moving footage of the stairs. And so that's a really, really big question for me. Was he still doing any kind of limping thing at all on the stairs? It doesn't seem to fit. The images don't seem to fit with what they've been describing as the previous gait, but they're only now calling it out when he starts running across the rooftop. Second thing that jumps out to me from this, we got 5 minutes here, okay? 5-minute gap. What was he doing during these 5 minutes? Is he visible from any of the camera angles during these 5 minutes? Is there a camera that sees what he's doing? Is he out of sight? If he has broken down the gun and is putting the gun back together or something like that, is this enough time for him to be doing that? But we want an accounting of this 5 minutes, if at all possible. If he's out of the view of the camera, one of the questions I'm going to have is, does that imply that he did some kind of casing? Has he gone and looked for the cameras so that he's able to conceal himself from them? Is there any kind of indication from previous activity or from the way that he's behaving on the cameras that suggests he knows when he is on camera and when he isn't? Got a question about that because that might play into the limp as well, the gait. Uh, if somebody knows they're on camera, you might perform. You might perform. You might do something for the purpose of deliberately creating a false impression on the part of law enforcement. So just a few questions that come up for me for that 5-minute gap there between climbing over the wall and then running across the rooftop. So at this point, the notable limp from the previous surveillance was absent. Suspect ran to the west side of the rooftop and appeared to scoot along the rooftop area as he got closer to the edge of the rooftop. At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect laid down in a position consistent with a prone shooting position near the edge of the rooftop and appeared to be facing west in the direction of the courtyard area. So this is very fast, right? Because this is 12:22 is when he stands up and starts running, and then he's still, automatically very quickly getting down into the prone shooting position. Can we see a gun in any of this? Getting down in a prone shooting position sounds like he's getting, it's how you shoot a rifle. Common way to shoot a rifle in a prone position, meaning lying on your stomach, lying on your chest. So sounds consistent, but in all of this camera footage, they don't describe seeing a rifle. The rooftop of the Losi Center building overlooks the courtyard area where the event featuring Charlie Kirk was taking place. The Losi Center building is east of the courtyard area. At approximately 12:23 hours, Charlie Kirk was shot. 1 minute. Okay, so we have 1 minute, maybe up to 2, right? Because if you're like at the beginning of 12:22 towards the end of 12:23, it's really closer to 2 minutes. But like a minute and a half from the time he runs across, gets in his prone position, and fires the shot. So this is very, very fast. This, to me, seems to cut against the breaking down and rebuilding the gun kind of theory, hypothesis of how this may have occurred. And part of the reason why, of course, is we'll get into a little bit more. This rifle is scoped. It has a scope, and to be able to sight in a scope, there are ways that you can do that don't require you to fire the gun. It's not going to be like you would never like go do a shooting competition or something like that. But they make like laser. I don't know what you call the tool, but it's a laser tool to allow you to sight in the scope, and it will generally get you precise enough to where you could at least hit what they call the paper target that you use to sight in the scope. So this all happened really fast. Okay, to be able to in 5 minutes potentially put a gun back together, sight in the scope, with a laser tool or something like that, because we don't have any indication it was fired other than this one single shot. I just don't know about that. I'm going to have questions, definitely going to have questions. I'm the defense attorney. I'm talking to the gun people about this one. I am looking for gun experts about this one. Just really no question to me about that. Possible. I mean, I can't rule it out. I can't say it's impossible that that's what happened. And I will say one thing that maybe would favor that is where the shot actually hit. The fact that the shot hit him in the neck. The neck is very unlikely to be the actual target, like the thing that you aimed at and were trying to hit. It's just not common, particularly if you wanted to make sure, I think that you were killing the person. You typically are going to aim for the torso, or you're going to aim for the head. You're going to aim for one of these larger targets. And so hitting the throat is potentially consistent with, we scoped in the rifle enough to be able to hit the paper, meaning generally hit the target, but it's not anywhere near precise enough to hit it exactly where you're aiming. So sighted it in well enough that if I aim for the head, aim for the chest, maybe I hit the throat. It seems possible, but I'm going to want to talk to the gun people about that. So Charlie Kirk was shot. At approximately 12:23 hours, surveillance shows that suspect stood up suddenly from the edge of the rooftop and sprinted north on the rooftop of the Losi Center building. Suspect ran to the northeast corner of the Losi Center building and approached the edge of the rooftop. Suspect placed a dark-colored item on the rooftop and proceeded to lower himself off the rooftop. Suspect dropped off the rooftop onto the grass below. Okay. This is the video that we saw. He placed a dark-colored item on the rooftop and proceeded to lower himself off the rooftop. Is this implying he left the dark-colored item on the rooftop? Is this something different than the, floppy kind of looking thing that we see in his hand? Suspect dropped off the rooftop into the grass below. Suspect ran near the parking lot to the east of the Losi Center. Hi, we have a visit here from little Corona Muralis coming up to say hi. Hi, sweetie. Say hello. They are really just the cutest kitties, I have to say. I am a cat person now. Never thought that was really going to happen, but here they are. Suspect ran north near the parking lot to the east of the Losi Center. At approximately 12:24 hours, suspect ran north across the Campus Drive Road. Suspect appeared to be carrying an item whose identity is not clear from the surveillance. Okay, so we know from that, whatever he's carrying, you can't tell it's a gun. So far, nothing in any of this probable cause information tells us at any point did they see a gun. Not even when they show him in the, lying prone position. There's nothing where they say, hey, we're able to see a gun in this surveillance footage. The area to the north of Campus Drive Road where suspect crossed over consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 .30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Best description that we have really in any of the documents so far about the gun itself. Mauser Model 98 .30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. So, this is like a fairly old school style gun. Want to say this was in World War II. This was a World War II era rifle. 30-06 is a what I would normally think of as a deer rifle. I mean, it has been used as a military rifle in the past. But I think in modern times, if you're using a 30-06, you're probably using it to hunt deer. It's kind of, my understanding, fallen out of favor. There are just, better calibers now for most purposes. And people don't like it because I think it kicks a lot. But I am at best only marginally familiar with rifles, not my expertise. But it is an unusual choice of gun. I can definitely say that from a standpoint of shooting crimes. Most shooting crimes are handguns. Shooting crimes that involve rifles usually involve some kind of AR platform is probably the most common. But usually a semi-automatic rifle. Bolt action, like old school military rifle, not common. It had the scope. We talked about that. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulge, OWO, what's this?" Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, catch!" Up arrow symbol, right arrow symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow, Chow." A third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay." Laugh my ass off. So, like, super memey stuff, right? This is like 4chan kind of stuff, inscribed on these casings. Um, Again, another one, seeing a lot of analysis about it. From the court standpoint, we're going to need experts to tell us, what do these things mean? What do they refer to? And that expertise sometimes it's credible, sometimes really not. Boy, gang experts have a real tendency to get a lot of stuff awfully wrong. Just for example, but I've seen, for example, the right arrow symbol and the up arrow, right arrow, 3 down arrow symbols is like a computer game, a controller motion for some kind of action in a video game. Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao. That is another World War II era song from Italy, from the Italian anti-fascist movement. The rest, seems to have political, hey fascist, and the Bella Ciao seem to have some fascist, anti-fascist kind of ideology associated with them. Notices bulge, that's a furry, not a furry reference, some kind of furry meme. And if you read this, you are gay. That just reads like full 4chan to me. Reddit, maybe. Not even Reddit. Reddit's like Reddit wouldn't insult people for being gay. It wouldn't use it as an insult. That would be like really looked down upon in Reddit. But 4chan, yeah, you might call people gay. So it seems to be quite a mixed bag in terms of, are these cartridges sending a message? If so, what exactly is this message supposed to be? Investigators also discovered a shoe impression on the northeast corner rooftop edge of the Low C Center building. The shoe impression was located in the vicinity where suspect climbed down from the rooftop. The shoe impression is consistent with the shoe sole characteristics of a Converse Chuck Taylor shoe. So they figured that out very quickly. That analysis, happened within a couple of days between the time that they got to the scene and started doing the forensic analysis, collection of evidence, and then approximately 2 days later when Mr. Robinson is arrested. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, so day and a half roughly later, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at UVU. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. So Washington County, not Provo, not Orem. This is quite a bit further south. This is in the St. George area of Utah. Beautiful, beautiful area of the state. So Utah County is where Provo and Orem is. Those are where the lead investigator is going to be. So this was a collateral contact from an outside law enforcement agency. They will be, of course, providing all of their own reports. If there is a 911 call, that's going to be recorded. There's going to be a record of that. All of these things are things now I'm going to expect to see them over the course of my investigation of the case. The contact, what exactly was said, who is this person, what's their relationship, what's their basis of knowledge, and so forth. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with the surveillance images. Well, this is different. This is different clothing than the person that we saw in those FBI photos, right? The FBI photo was the blue jeans, the black shirt, long sleeve with the flag kind of logo on the front and the hat. These are maroon t-shirt, light shorts, light shoes. These are different clothes. So what's the story there? Is that what was in his backpack? 8:29, quite a bit earlier, right? If we have 12:23, the shooting, 11:53 is the first time that he's seen on campus. Then what was he doing for those hours? I would expect there is a massive, massive video canvas that's happened in this area. Every Ring camera, footage, all of the, the stop sign, the stoplight cameras that they have at many, many, many intersections now. Of course, public surveillance systems, all of that stuff. They are going to pull as much footage as they possibly can to try to track every detail of his movements. Because this is a question, okay? If it's him, if this is the same guy, then he changed his clothes. When did he change his clothes? Why did he change his clothes? How did you see him? When you saw him on video wearing these clothes, you probably didn't see that inside the car, right? You probably didn't see. So you saw him outside the car. What was he doing outside the car? Were you able to follow him? This car, I'm going to have some questions just based on this car, okay? A gray Dodge Challenger, in and of itself, I don't know. But I want to know, is this a newer model car? Is this an older model car? Part of the reason I want to know, this is a sports car. This is a muscle car. This is a race car, so to speak. It's not the type of car that I would expect. It's a type of car. I'll just say it. Okay, I'll just say it. It's the type of car I would expect when somebody goes in and they sign up for the military and they get their signing bonus and immediately go and buy a car. I expect something like a Dodge Challenger. It's not something that I would expect just kind of a run-of-the-mill student, low wage, low income type of person, as most people in our early 20s are at that stages of our lives. I just wouldn't expect them necessarily to have the money to go and buy a newer Dodge Challenger. Not impossible for sure, but I just have questions about it. Who's the car registered to? Is it registered to him? Is it registered to somebody else? Where did he get the car? A lot of questions that I'm going to have just based on the car. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, 2025. And in conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. Well, this is evidence of prior knowledge, certainly. Can't plead, hey, it's not me because I didn't even know, I don't even know who Charlie Kirk is, didn't even know he was going to be around. No, they can place him with prior knowledge of Charlie Kirk based on a family member information, which typically juries find it pretty credible. If your family goes to law enforcement to give information about you, people tend to believe that because families aren't going to want to tell on you if they don't have to, if they don't think there is a really good reason to. Families are typically going to want to paint you in the best light possible. So if they're giving up information that's potentially incriminating, that is going to usually carry some weight. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. Now we're getting to evidence of motive. And potential linkage with the messages that are carved on, those cartridges, the engraving on the cartridges, specifically like fascist catch, that kind of thing. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Okay, so he's affiliated with this car. He didn't borrow the car from, like, say, a co-conspirator. It's his car. That's good to know. I still want to know, still got questions about it. How does this kid end up with this car? Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed the roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. The photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact name Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. So they're communicating through Discord, and he made a joke on Discord. We don't know what the joke is. They haven't specified what's the joke. Was the joke something that was publicly posted? Was the joke something that was in these internal messages? Don't know yet, but I'm going to want some clarification about the joke and definitely the Discord activity. So we can already, like, take it on faith. The Discord activity has been mined. Okay, it has been, like, fully gone through. They are looking at everything that has happened on Discord. The content of those messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point. A drop point, that's peculiar. It's a peculiar choice of words. Why do you have a drop point if you are the only person that's involved? Like, why do you need a drop point for a solo mission? Normally, with something like a drop point, I'm expecting that's because it's an exchange. This last winter, went on a nice 3-day trek down in the Dientes de Navarino. This was the southernmost civilized civilization on the planet, down there by Cape Horn on Navarino Island. And so at various points, there were, you had to stash, like, more food and things like that. And so there are drop points for that. Somebody hikes out, they stash the bag at the drop point, and then when we come through, we pick the bag up and then we eat the food. So that's what I think of with a drop point. Is it something that involves coordination between multiple people? Again, don't know, can't say for sure, but I'm going to have questions about that. Why are you using a drop point if this is just something that you are doing on your own solo mission? If he had scoped out the area for cameras, for example, is he, like, trying to stash it until it's dark when he can go recover it because he'd have to take it in front of cameras? Did something happen that caught him by surprise that required him to abandon the gun? I'd like to know. I have a lot of questions about the drop point. So he stated a need to retrieve the rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush. Messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. So that is fairly incriminating, right? Because that's the condition that they found the rifle in. They found it wrapped in a towel. If this was the rifle that was used in the shooting, it's a link between him and that rifle. So that wouldn't be good for him. But we don't have anything in this so far that indicates a bullet linked to the rifle. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mention that he had changed outfits. Okay, now this goes back to the discrepancy in the clothing. The guy that was seen on the surveillance footage versus when he first showed up at 8:30 in the morning, and then when he was later arrested, had the different clothing on. So It explains he did. Really not clear why he did. Um, Based on the evidence detailed in this statement, I believe there is probable cause that Tyler Robinson committed the crimes of aggravated murder by shooting Charlie Kirk in a circumstance that put many around him at grave risk of death, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice for moving and hiding the rifle believed to be used in the shooting. So that's the law enforcement officer's version. That's his account of the probable cause. You know, it does remind me a little bit of the Brian Koberger case. And I don't want to just, call out that case in particular. It's just an example of a phenomenon that tends to happen when you have a very violent crime like this. And you don't necessarily know who you're looking for. It's not a situation where like they completed the whole investigation and they know who they're looking for and the person has simply absconded. That might be a case like I've already forgotten the guy's name. Travis Decker. Travis Decker was a gentleman here in central Washington. Had murdered his little girls, his 3 little girls. And there's, not really any question about, more than likely it was him. It was probably him. But he had absconded. He went missing, and, there was a manhunt for like a couple of months before they ultimately found his remains out there in the woods near where the murder had happened. So in that kind of a situation, you know who you're looking for. You have a lot of time to do this kind of background type of investigation, to go through the messages and the communications and the phone activity and stuff like that. In a case like this, where it's a quick move between identifying the suspect and getting the suspect in custody, the same like it was with Brian Koberger, you don't have that time. And so the probable cause affidavit tends to be a lot more bare bones in those types of situations. It's just giving you the pieces that helped you make the connection between the person that you're arresting and what you know about the crime. And so this probable cause affidavit, the connections are basically, number one, somebody says he confessed, right? Somebody says he confessed. Family member, the person who called it in, family friend, the person who called it in the first place says he confessed. So that's really number one. The guy said he did it. Then they have him connecting to the gray Dodge Challenger. The gray Dodge Challenger is connected with the person in the red clothing with the light colored shorts, but not necessarily, from what I've seen, with the person in the dark shirt with the brown pants, the brown pants with the blue jeans. So that may be a little bit more tenuous, but he did have knowledge of what was going on. And then we have the statements, the Discord messages talking about the rifle. This is the most incriminating one, I think. The rifle being wrapped in a towel and having a scope, and there being information about the bullets being engraved. So this implies knowledge consistent with the weapon that the law enforcement recovered, that would tend to connect him with this crime as well. So my read on this, based on the probable cause affidavit, yeah, there's definitely enough to hold him. Definitely enough to think probable cause he's involved. But still a lot of questions about, the why, the how, and particularly, is this just him? Was this just him? Was this a solo? Because a lot of the evidence just so far from this doesn't seem to reconcile. The gate is a big one to me. I don't see that on the stairs. If there's at no point on the video camera that they've described that they had in their possession at the time of this, that this probable cause affidavit was written, they don't describe seeing a firearm at any point in time. I'm going to want to know why. I'm probably going to want to see that footage for myself. Yeah, it could be just that it's poor quality. It's from far away. It's pixelated. You can't get a lot of detail from zooming in. But I'm just going to want that to be, accounted for. I expect from this that there are going to be other links. Yes, we're going to be able to link Tyler Robinson with this very specific Mauser 98 30-06 rifle, not just like any rifle, but that particular rifle. But the most important thing is going to be linking the rifle to Charlie Kirk's murder. And that I'm kind of surprised that we didn't see anything about that in the probable cause affidavit, and I'll explain why. At this point, the very first day that Charlie Kirk was killed on September the 10th, his body was released back to his family that night. And so I presume from this that all of his medical treatment, took place. They were unable to save him, and he was handed over to the medical examiner for immediate autopsy and then released. There's been a lot of questions that I've seen around kind of in the commentary about this case. Was there an autopsy? Is it possible there was no autopsy? It's possible there was no autopsy. The law doesn't absolutely require that there be an autopsy. And in certain circumstances, you may not always need an autopsy. Like if it's pretty obvious what the cause of death was, if you can get adequate information from the medical treatment itself about things like, trajectory and, cause of death and things like that, you may not need to do a full autopsy, but they're going to, right? You're going to absolutely cover that. You're going to cover that ground. So if you've done an autopsy, then if there is a retained bullet, you will have recovered it. Meaning if the bullet is in Charlie Kirk's body. And, one thing that has kind of been also part of the commentary that I've seen, certainly saw for myself with the video of the shooting, it doesn't look like there's an exit wound. It does look like the bullet was retained. So if the bullet is retained, the question becomes, what can you learn from that bullet? And there's a lot of it depends that's kind of, associated with that. It depends on the condition of the bullet is the main one. Bullets can fragment, bullets can mushroom, bullets can do all kinds of weird things that may or may not allow them to be used for comparison purposes. But if there is enough intact bullet that they're able to recover, then they're going to do a comparison with the rifle that they recovered. And this is just a pattern recognition analysis. We've talked about that on this channel many times. Not necessarily the best science, the most rigorous science out there. But for our purposes here, the point is simply that it's one that they use. They do it. They will go through and they compare the marks that are left on the bullet with the rifling that is in the barrel of the gun. They look at other marks that are created by like the chamber, the bolt, the firing pin, and basically from that form an opinion about whether the bullet is consistent with having been fired from that firearm or not. If this is a unique gun, also a lot of times if this is an old gun that's been fired a lot of times, an old gun that maybe it hasn't been maintained like in absolute pristine condition for its whole life, those types of guns are more likely to be able to leave unique marks on a bullet or a bullet cartridge, because you can get like burrs in the rifling. You can get like pieces become loose, components can become loose. They can just impact the bullet in different ways. So with an old gun, maybe you've got some rust, some burrs, some accumulated just wear affects the way that the bullet is marked. And so the more unique markings like that you have, the better likelihood that there is that you can say, it's really probably this particular gun and not just any like Mauser 98 30-06 gun. So they have this tool available, this method available. They use it routinely. They already like compared the shoe prints to Chuck Taylor. Yeah, okay, it might take a little bit longer to do a bullet comparison. But they were clearly moving quick. They were getting things done quick. And as we see when we turn to the next probable cause statement that's in the information, they were able to get quite a bit of investigation done very quickly. So the absence of any information linking this particular rifle with the murder of Charlie Kirk, it's an open question for me. Why is that? Why don't we know that yet? And is that going to be something that we will be able to figure out? So let me pause here for a brief little sip of my tea, because that was a lot of reading. And I'm a little out of practice, guys. It's been a minute since I've been on here. So let's go ahead now and turn to the other document, the information. So here we have, by the way, our 5 prosecuting attorneys on top in addition to, the head chief guy that are going to be running this prosecution, 5 deputy Utah County attorneys that are involved in the case. This is what they filed against Tyler James Robinson. So as you saw, the probable cause affidavit was just these 3 probable cause for these 3 charges: aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. The information, once the prosecutor has reviewed the case and decided what they're going to charge, they have added some. So they're charging Tyler Robinson with aggravated murder, capital felony, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstance. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. So this is murder plus, basically. Idaho or Utah, like most places, if you're going to pursue a death penalty sentence, it has to be a special murder. It has to be a particularly bad murder. It can't just be an ordinary run-of-the-mill murder. There has to be some kind of aggravating circumstance that justifies treating this one with, the most severe punishment that the law allows. So this is the aggravating circumstance that knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. All right, I'm putting my defense attorney hat on, guys. This was a single shot murder. Single shot murder, hit the target. Are we really? Did that really create a great risk of death? What about that caused a great risk of death? It's a big crowd. I get it. It's a big crowd. Lots of people there. You could have, aimed wrong. You could have hit somebody else. The bullet maybe could have passed through and hit somebody standing behind him. Anytime you fire a firearm into, a group of people, frankly, in the general direction of anybody, you're creating a risk of something bad happen. But knowingly creating a great risk of death, I mean, they obviously want to pursue the death penalty in this case. I think the challenge is that under Utah's death penalty statute, they didn't really have anything that clearly stood out as a means to do that. They don't have for example, political motivation aggravator. Maybe that would be worth considering. Just going to go ahead and throw that out there. If you murder somebody based on their political beliefs, maybe that's aggravating. There does seem to be some evidence of that. Potentially that's what our motive is here. Would that be a reason to impose the death penalty? That's a policy question. I guess the legislature has to evaluate. But didn't really have an obvious one. Normal aggravating circumstances, the ones that commonly are seen, use a weapon of mass destruction. So like a bomb, something like that, a Unabomber. You use a bomb, you're probably going to get aggravating circumstances. Involves more than one murder. You went on a spree. That's common. You killed somebody that's younger, a young person, a baby, a child. That can be grounds for aggravated murder. It's especially heinous. You did something that's really, really terrible and gross. Maybe you're, part of some other scheme that I don't want to talk about because of, we don't want the stream to get yanked from YouTube. But those types of things happen, and those are kind of among the common reasons you see for aggravated murder charges to be brought. Shooting somebody with a single shot from a rifle, that's going to be the question, right? That's going to be the question that the jury has to decide. Does that constitute creating a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant? Now, if you get a death qualified jury, by definition, they're kind of more inclined to probably agree with this than if this were not a death penalty case. It's a little bit of the catch-22 when you file a death penalty charge, is that to qualify a jury for death, meaning nobody has a moral opposition to the death penalty. They will all be willing to impose it if the circumstances call for it. You've selected for people that are not only more likely to convict, but also more likely to look for harsher punishments. And this is just something that's been, it's been studied for many, many years, pretty well established. So if I'm the defendant looking at this, I don't really want that to go to the jury if I can. So do I have a pretrial mechanism to challenge this? Can I argue there's insufficient evidence just based on what's been alleged, based on what's been known, based on what's presented? Is there a way to do that pretrial? You can kind of always do that in trial, at least I would expect mid-trial. As you guys know, if you've probably watched criminal trials before, once the state closes its case, rests its case, it's very common for the defense to move to dismiss any or all of the charges on the grounds that the state has failed to prove. They haven't presented sufficient evidence to prove each and every one of the elements of the charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Aggravated murder, the way that it appears to work in Utah is that aggravated murder is a standalone charge. So this knowingly creating a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant, that is an element of aggravated murder. If the jury is not going to find that, they would have to find a lesser included offense of just ordinary murder. That's how I read it anyway. Haven't had a chance to thoroughly research that, but that's my interpretation of it. So it does seem to me from that at the very least, defense could go through the state case, get all their evidence in, and then move at the close of the state's case to dismiss the aggravating circumstance. Evidence doesn't prove he shot one time, hit his target. Maybe you'll have some kind of defense expert, a gun person to talk about flagging and talk about overshooting and things like that, and how this mitigated the risk of anything like that happening. It's possible. But so that seems feasible. They could do that. Unlikely to get it, I would think, because judges tend to want this type of thing to go forward to the jury. But even more so kind of than that, I don't want to have to wait until we've gone through trial to know if I'm dealing with a death penalty case or not. I don't want to have to wait to the end of the state's case to know, hey, if we're going to take death off the table, we're only just now figuring it out. I would like to know that as soon as possible. I would like to take that off the table as soon as possible. So if there is a mechanism to be able to challenge it, maybe we'll see it. Don't know. But it's just something that, again, I'm the defense attorney. This is my case. This lands on my desk. I'm going to be thinking about, is that possible to take that off the table just on purely legal grounds? So the notice that the offense may carry the death penalty, it may, and the state has also filed their notice of intent to pursue the death penalty. So they are, in fact, pursuing the death penalty in this case. They've added these enhancements as well. These are like sentencing enhancements. They don't necessarily mean a lot in the case of a capital murder charge, because you're not going to get worse than the death penalty anyway. But even if you don't get the death penalty, you're probably getting life, and so you can't really make it worse. But this is likely anticipating something like, maybe a lesser included offense of second-degree murder or something like that. This indeterminate sentence that could potentially hold out the possibility of some type of parole or release in the future. And so these enhancements are intended to basically affect that, to try to either bump up the minimum sentence that's served or to serve as an additional factor that the parole board would consider. So the first one, victim targeting. He intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of his belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. So not an independent standalone basis to seek the death penalty, but a political motivation can potentially enhance the sentence. And then second, violent offense committed in the presence of a child. That's something that the Board of Prisons, Pardons and Parole shall consider as an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent criminal offense in the presence of a child. There will need to be evidence of that presented, of course. What child? How did they witness it? But if they can do that, then that is something that would be taken into consideration. This was obviously done in public, and of course, as we've already talked about, it was videoed. The video was everywhere. I'm sure a lot of people who really didn't want to see it, nevertheless, saw it. So that could factor in potentially. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. Same enhancements are being covered. It's not going to matter if he's convicted of murder, but yes, there is a additional charge for that. The obstruction charges. So the initial obstruction charge, remember, that was recommended by the law enforcement officer was based on hiding the rifle. So when the prosecutors decided to charge it, the first count was based on concealed or removed the firearm used to shoot Charlie Kirk. So tried to avoid being caught by hiding the gun. I'm the defense attorney in me comes out, and I just criticize these sometimes because like hiding the gun is kind of what got him caught. Like if you wanted to not get caught, wouldn't you keep the gun, or maybe you would destroy the gun or something like that? But putting it in a bush wrapped in a towel and then talking about how you wrapped it in a towel and put it in a bush, it's probably not what I would do to try to hinder the investigation. But nevertheless, that's the allegation. And then the second count is that on the next day, with intent to hinder, delay, prevent the investigation, etc., destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing he wore during the shooting. Okay, so this is the next day. He got rid of the clothes. That's what it seems to be saying. Did he change the clothes? He had changed the clothes before. So I'm not sure if this is referring to just changing the clothes, right? Removed the clothing that he wore, or if this is the next day. It's the next day. Did he get rid of those original clothes? That would be a question. By the way, on or about the September 11th, 2025, it doesn't really mean anything from a legal perspective. It's nice that they say that, and it helps us to kind of sort out what their theory of the case is. But the dates legally don't mean anything. Typically, if you use these are magic words, on or about the date. It just means that you did it sometime, sometime within the statute of limitations, you did it. So it may or may not actually be September 11th, 2025, but they did put that in there apparently on purpose. So next day, he did something with the clothes that they're charging him with. Then we have witness tampering, that he attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, a document, or an item, to wit, directing his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. So delete this, delete this as a charge of tampering. And then a second count of tampering, that he attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned the roommate. Now, this one is an interesting one, isn't it? Because, of course, nobody has to talk to the police. Nobody has to talk to the police. But of course, nobody has to keep their text messages either. You know, you can delete your text messages. It's not against the law to do that. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of to do about these particular charges because they're so minor and insignificant, you know, relative to the primary homicide crime that he's being charged with. But it is just kind of an interesting little side question here, mainly with this directing the roommate to stay silent if police question the roommate. Is that legally sufficient to support a tampering charge? Because nobody has the obligation to talk to the police. Now, here's the wrinkle, kind of as I see it, right? Everybody has the right to remain silent. Everybody has the right to remain silent. But you really only have a First Amendment privilege against self-incrimination if speaking would incriminate you, right? If his roommate is not involved, if there's nothing that the roommate would say that would incriminate the roommate, then he doesn't necessarily have a privilege to remain silent. Now, obviously, police questioning is always completely voluntary. You never have to do that. You only have to speak if you are, under subpoena, you're being deposed, something like that. You're on the stand, being told that you have to. So it's just, this one is one that jumps out at me because, people don't have to talk to the police, and telling somebody not to talk to the police. I mean, I would say that routinely as a criminal defense attorney. Don't talk to the police. Does that make me guilty of witness tampering? No, I'm just advising people of their rights and what's really in their interest not to do. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child. Again, this one's a misdemeanor. In the presence of a child younger than 14 years old. It's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things, and it also carries this victim targeting enhancement. So 7 total counts, but for all practical purposes, the one that matters is the aggravated murder charge. So now we get into the prosecutor's version of the probable cause statement. And like I said, this differs in noticeable ways from the probable cause affidavit that we got from Brian Davis. So his was very law enforcement-esque. It's got that timeline, the chronology, the showing the connections between the different pieces, even though those connections are pretty minimal right now. Nevertheless, Tyler in the clothing, Tyler in the confession, the statements that tie to the presence of the gun, the engravings on the cartridges, and so forth. When the prosecutor gets a hold of this, it starts to become much more narrative. It starts to become more story, starts to tell a story. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. And definitely a few material spots where I noticed some differences that I will call out when we get to them. So on September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. This is little St. Joan who's come up to say hi now. Hi, sweetie. You want to purr in the mic? I don't know if anyone can hear that, but she's a little sweet girl. This is our runt of the litter, little Joan. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action .30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next approximately 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11th, 2025, when Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. So already, we've got a little bit more detail being filled in here in this statement than we got from the Brian Davis probable cause affidavit. The rifle was nearby. He didn't specifically call out where the rifle had been found. But the rifle was nearby. They did the manhunt, and then it was the evening when Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police. We didn't hear in Brian James' affidavit that Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police. And now, of course, big new piece of information. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. This right here, okay? This right here is what still has me asking some questions about the link between the rifle and the murder, because you had time to do DNA analysis, okay? You had time to do DNA analysis. Surely you had time to do a ballistics comparison, but we haven't heard anything about it. I don't know, guys. Very likely nothing, and they are doing it, will do it, whatever. But it's just a gap that's there that me with the defense attorney brain, I'm gonna notice that gap is there. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. It's just obviously an even closer tie now, a connection between Mr. Robinson and this particular firearm that they recovered. You know, it's one thing for him to be talking about, yeah, I left it where they found it. I had it wrapped in a towel like they found it. You know, those are certainly good circumstantial evidence, but DNA is quite strong circumstantial evidence on the trigger. Now, not a lot of detail, but we will eventually, over the course of this case, find out details. Mixed profile, single source profile, those types of things can matter with respect to, is there going to be a potential defense available? After shooting Mr. Kirk, Robinson hid the gun, discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle. So now they're telling us specifically discarded it, and told his lover/roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Lover is new. Didn't hear that from Brian Davis. And not to talk to police. Children were present at the time of the shooting. So this is just their broad outline of, you know, in one sentence, why are you bringing each of these individual charges? And so now into the details. The shooting. Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10th, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist, famous for these types of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. So highlighting right off the bat that we're going to call this person controversial. We're going to call Charlie Kirk controversial. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. Consequently, several hundred people attended. Okay, also new, kind of new. I mean, they told us before hundreds, several hundred, maybe that's just the same thing. Do they have a better count? I don't know. Mr. Kirk was interacting with the crowd before the event officially got underway. Then, approximately at noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. They're calling this out, I believe, because that is going to be one of their hooks to the creating a grave risk to others. The fact that there's somebody at a microphone right in front of him potentially creates a risk that, you know, either from a bad aim or from a ricochet or something like that, the person that's standing in front of him was in the field of fire, so to speak, and was potentially at risk from that shot. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. Again, just adding some detail to the image to show these people were all potentially in range. They were all, you know, if the bullet had passed through, it could hit somebody behind him, ricochet again. These were people that could have easily been struck. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on 3 sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Well, they know presumably how many feet, but they're not telling us how many feet. So this is some good descriptive prosecutorial writing, because my suspicion is when you say a matter of feet, it might actually be quite a few feet. A matter of feet. What does that mean? 100 feet could be a matter of feet. We don't know what a matter of feet is. And part of the issue, I think, that would come up in an evaluation of how at risk are the other people in the immediate vicinity of Charlie Kirk. They're going to be looking at the sight line from the top of the roof. And so if somebody is, 4 feet in front of Mr. Kirk, they're, not necessarily with the downward trajectory going to be, quite in range. If they're 10 feet away, like even less likely. So feet are going to matter in this scenario, in terms of how much would you have to have your rifle angle off if you were going to hit that, person asking the question, as opposed to Mr. Kirk. So very clever use of descriptive language here. Only a matter of feet. Well, how many feet? You could just tell us how many feet, but you're not, because you're telling a story. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags, an indoor walkway spanning several hundred feet with floor-to-ceiling glass windows which overlooked the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. So again, all of this just setting the stage for all of these people were around when the shot was fired. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. Now, that's definitely far more detailed than we got from the Brian Davis. The fact that this question was the one that was ongoing at the time that the shooting took place, when the shooter decided to pull the trigger. Is that coincidence, or was that purposeful? Does that relate to the motivation? Oh, we'll get to that. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. So it passed closely to several individuals beside him. I'm going to want to see what this means. I'm going to want to see like mock-up of who was standing where. Give me a chart or something like that. Show me the trajectory of the bullet. And part of the reason why is because I'm still, questioning, did the bullet pass through Mr. Kirk? Didn't look like it did on the video, but, it's very difficult to say. Did the bullet pass through him? Was the bullet retained in his body? Creates a different set of risk for people in different circumstances, depending on exactly what happened there. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is pending. Let this lay to rest any concern that there was no autopsy. The medical examiner is preparing a report. The medical examiner did an autopsy. So don't worry about that. It happened. And when the information in the autopsy becomes a matter of public record is up in the air, but it seems highly likely that at some point it will. The UVU surveillance investigation. At the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer, the UVU officer, was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, He looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. This fills in a little bit of the background for me in terms of what exactly was the security situation out here. Was it something that Turning Point USA was solely responsible for? Doesn't sound like it, because there is at least a police officer who's present for crowd control, I guess, if nothing else. He knows enough to recognize a rifle shot and enough to look for where likely vantage points for a rifle will be. But it seems quite odd to me that those areas would not have been, cleared, if nothing else, from a drone. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we had drones out over the ramp that we had to sleep on in front of the Delphi courthouse. They didn't have drones out there, to monitor the rooftops and stuff like that. It's just extremely unfortunate that it seems like a fairly straightforward type of security precaution that could it have been taken? Is there some reason why it couldn't have? Is there some kind of like regulation that limits the ability to fly drones on a university campus? I don't know, but I have questions. I would like to know how somebody was able to get on that roof and commit a shot and, not be detected. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. Like, hello, red flag. Hello, red flag. You would think a basic security team that's going out to scope this setup for this event is going to notice, here's this rooftop 160 yards away. It's got a clear line of sight down here to where we're going to have the event, and you can just walk to it. It just, so tragic. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UVU officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings in the gravel rooftop consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by the elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. He better have documented this. Okay. Question number one. Another question. It's not number one. I've had a lot so far. But big question I'm going to have for the defense. Where's your documentation of this? Because I hope you didn't just like describe it. I hope you photographed it. I hope you photographed it from lots of different angles. I hope you also took care to preserve the scene. How was the scene sealed off to make sure that it was not compromised in any way if it's publicly accessible? Did you review the surveillance footage to make sure nobody else had gotten onto the roof between the time of the shooting and the time the UVU officer gets there? These are all just, let's check these boxes to make sure that those questions have been answered. Police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15 p.m. Now, this is the same thing we saw in the probable cause affidavit. So of course, it's all cut off. Notice we got to climb. We got a bit of a time discrepancy here. According to Brian Davis, at approximately 12:15, suspect was observed walking up the stairs that lead to the common area adjacent to the Losi Center building. And he walked to the concrete wall and then climbed over the short wall at approximately 12:17. We got a discrepancy now. This one's saying that he crossed the railing from the public walkway and dropped onto the roof at 12:15. Wonder how they're going to reconcile that. Going to have a question about that as the defense lawyer. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof and then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. So, this answers a little bit of the question that I had from the first probable cause about this time gap and what does it mean? What's going on? Is he on camera during this time? And it seems apparently he was not. He was out of the camera's view. And we know, at least if the times of Brian Davis's probable cause affidavit hold up, which is not clear at this point, but if they do, it was about a 5-minute period where he was out of the camera view. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. So far less detailed here in terms of the timeline than we got from that initial probable cause, where we knew takes off at 12:22, he's in the prone position at 12:22, at 12:23 the shot's fired, and then he's out of there. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. So whereas Brian Davis just kind of did everything in chronological order, the prosecutor is describing it in investigative order. He's describing it in terms of how they got the information. So the first piece of video that they found was the rooftop footage. And then based on that, they backtracked and they tried to recreate. So surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He's seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in its center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. Are they implying that he has prior knowledge of where the cameras are? And is that part of the explanation for what he was doing, why he got there at 8:50 something before he came on campus about 3 hours later? Was he scoping the place out? Don't know yet. But they seem to be implying that he's trying to hide his face from cameras. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railing off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. Again, they're not really telling me about the stairs, because the stairs, from the pictures that we saw, the still images the FBI released, that doesn't seem consistent with this gait that they're describing. Both of his legs are bent. Climbing stairs in general requires you to bend your legs. There are witnesses on these stairs that you would think would notice if somebody is like walking real weird up the stairs. Don't know, but not having all my questions resolved so far. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. We watched the video before. Do we need to watch it again? Do we need to watch it again? Because you guys are going to have to decide for yourself. We're going to go ahead and watch it again. I really don't know if I can agree that this is consistent with a rifle. I just don't know that I can agree with that. Let's go ahead and watch it on YouTube. Let's go ahead and full screen it. Okay. Here he's about to come around the corner of the building. You can see him at the back, coming around the front here. That right there, he put something down to the left, and then he's got the thing that he right there. Is that gun shaped? Are they saying that's gun shaped because it appears very soft? Doesn't that look soft? Okay, I don't think I'm insane. He put something down at the corner. Then Then he jumps off and there's something in his right hand there and it's floppy. Now, could that be a towel? Yeah, that could be the black towel. I buy that that could be the black towel. But he puts the thing down. What did he put down? Did they recover something from over there? Have they reviewed the surveillance footage? I still have a million questions about this, guys, because I'm just not sure that I can agree that that thing that we see in his hand appears to be gun-shaped. It looks like a floppy towel. And now, is he walking with a funny gait again? Is that what they mean by the funny gait? I just don't know. Just don't know. So, that's the video. Looks to me like he's carrying two different things. He puts one down in the corner with his left hand, the other is in his right. He jumps off, the right hand looks floppy. That's what I see. I'm going to want to know what else is on that video. All right, let's go back to the probable cause. To me, that's part of the $1 million question here, which is really, is this a solo crime? Is this something that he did by himself? He's talking about a drop zone. He appears to leave something there on the roof. We had the reference in the Brian Davis probable cause statement that is not repeated here in the court statement about his using the phone. He used the phone right before he went into the tunnel. Was that a communication? Was there coordination going on? This, I think, is a big question that needs to be answered, and for a lot of different reasons, not just because, anybody who cares about this case is going to want to know what happened. Anybody who cares about Charlie Kirk is going to want to know what happened. But also just from the legal standpoint, if there are other people involved, that's always a potential defense avenue. It's always a potential defense avenue. Even if it can't take you off the table as a perpetrator, it can be mitigation evidence, right? I was acting under the influence of somebody else. Somebody else was the brain, the brain behind it. I was just the soldier, the grunt that carried it out. Again, not sure that anybody is going to buy that, but the defense is going to try anything they can to try to save their client's life. And so if there is any reason that you could potentially point the finger at somebody else, oh, you better believe you're going to go down that road. So they have to be prepared to answer those questions because they seem to me pretty obvious at this very early stage. These seem to be indications of potential coordination with somebody else. So prosecution, you better be prepared to put that to rest. If you're not going to, if nobody else ends up being charged with this, and the theory is that this is a lone wolf, a solo act, then you better have really good explanations for what was he doing on the phone? What did he drop up there on the roof? Why is he talking about a drop zone, et cetera, a drop point? Expanded crime scene investigation. Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus, where they believed the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shooting. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. Once again, what's missing from this? Time frame. Okay, so if we have the UVU guy immediately checking out the roof and finding the roof, and then checking the surveillance footage, and they find the image of the person on the surveillance footage, and then they do the kind of reverse backtracking through the surveillance footage to get to what his path was. How long did that take? What are we talking about now? Because if there is some type of handoff, some type of recovery, or something like that, that's going to be a question. How long did potential co-conspirators have to work with if there were more than one person involved? Did he go back to the scene? That's all, a whole other question. Could it have been him that went back and got it? He stashed it on the roof. He went back and got it. I don't know, but I have questions. Each round of the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows: fired cartridge, notices bulge. Oh, what's this? That's the furry one. Second cartridge, hey fascist, catch, with the arrow symbols. Fascist indicating motive potentially, and then the arrow symbols that may or may not relate to a video game. Third cartridge, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. That is the Italian anti-fascist song from back during World War II. And fourth cartridge, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO. And that just reads for pure 4chan to me. I don't even know how else to characterize that. Don't even know how that fits in. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with Robinson's was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. That's a lot of DNA in a lot of different places. Okay, this is not just tiny little bit of trace DNA on one part of a snap of a knife sheath that's found at a crime scene. This is DNA in a lot of different places. But we still don't have a lot of detail about, again, are these high quality samples? Are these mixed samples or single source samples? We can assume if they're finding these, on the trigger and the cartridges and stuff like that, that this is likely going to be touch DNA. This isn't that he bled on the gun. This isn't that he spat on the gun. This is likely going to be touch DNA. And so with touch DNA, you can have multiple people that have touched the thing that have left DNA on it. It's just again going to be a question that's going to come up. If there are other DNA profiles on it, do we know who they are? Have they been identified? Grandfather, we would probably expect, if, as it turns out, this is grandfather's gun. But who else? If there's unknown DNA, that would be big questions. So I will be looking for the DNA reports as the defense attorney to find out as much as I can. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. Now we have Jude, big boy St. Jude, coming up to say hi. He's a little bit of a rowdy boy, but he seems to just want to sit in my lap. So, the Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Robinson's mother stated the following to police. On September 11, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at home sick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspected shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. So he tells his mom that he's sick. They're going to do a location analysis from his cell phone. Okay. They're going to get his cell site location. They're going to get his GPS. They're going to know if he was anywhere other than sick at home. And if he's anywhere other than sick at home, then he's lied to his mother, and that is going to be consciousness of guilt evidence. He is trying to cover up his whereabouts. That's going to be pretty straightforward. And it's also going to be very, very credible, believable to a jury, because no mom is going to call in her son and report her son's false alibi, unless she really believed it. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. Now we're getting again back into motive and that potential link with the question that was being asked. He was shot in the middle of answering a question about murders committed by transgender individuals. So possible is just a coincidence of timing, but also possible that it is ideologically related. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. So once again, we know Robinson is not a fan of Charlie Kirk, does not approve of the ideology. I am curious about this stupid venue comment. I wonder why he considered that a stupid venue. Does he mean it's a stupid venue for security purposes? Does he mean it's a stupid venue because people there are more left-wing, people there are more right-wing? Don't know. We may never know, but just an interesting comment. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. Now, remember, the rifle was identified in the media, and the New York Post had posted an unofficial photograph of the Mauser 98 rifle that they allege that he used. It's not formal evidence, so we don't know 100% sure if it's good or not. The FBI hasn't formally released it, but it was out there in the news. And so I am presuming that that is what the father saw. He saw that New York Post photo of the rifle, and it looked like the rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Once again, consciousness of guilt. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter. Implied. Now, previously they said he had confessed, but now it sounds like he's saying he's implied. Stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained, "There is too much evil, and the guy, Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate." They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. This is going to be very compelling that this is what the family has had to say. You just probably aren't going to make something like this up about your own son and set him up for a death penalty case. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The family friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. Doesn't mean he can't lead them back to it, but I guess it just depends on where and how he disposed of them. If he put them in a dumpster, they might be dumped by now. If he ditched them, in a bush, like he apparently did with the gun, maybe they would be able to go back and recover it. But also bringing the evidence with him to the sheriff's office. That will be interesting just in terms of identifying what was voluntarily surrendered versus anything that they did go and subsequently find by a search warrant anyway. This is going to go to knowledge, his knowledge that there is incriminating stuff on whatever it is that he turned over. But also how thorough, how complete is his production of stuff is gonna raise some questions as well. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting and provided those messages to police. On September 10, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you are doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. Prior knowledge, that is going to be important. Now, the note itself, I do wonder what happened to the note itself. Have police recovered the note itself, or was something done with the note? That's a question. Also, the photograph of the note, what's the metadata? When was it taken? If the photograph of the note was taken before the shooting, well, that's huge, right? That would be huge. If it's taken after the shooting, can't necessarily rule out that it's I'm people who are crazy will often confess to crimes that they didn't commit. I'm not saying I think that's what happened in this case. There seems to be more connection than that, but it just creates a little bit of a different scenario. If the photograph of the note is after the shooting has already taken place, when everybody already knows Charlie Kirk has been shot, versus if it was taken before, then that's pretty compelling evidence. The following text exchange then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? Million question marks. You're joking, right?" Robinson: "I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep the secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." So now this implies the note was photographed after. But I'm going to want to know the timeline. One of the things I'm wondering, he received the text message that said, "Drop what you were doing, look under my keyboard." Was this maybe what he was doing with his phone before he went into the tunnel at 11 something at the morning before Charlie was shot? Was that the communication that was taking place? Did this happen sometime after? Did the roommate get the message right away and respond? Just going to be interested in that timeline. Roommate: "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Question. Robinson: "I am. I'm sorry." Roommate: "I thought they caught the person." Robinson: "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." So again, with the drop point, why did he have a drop point at all? I just curious. Roommate: "Why?" Robinson: "Why did I do it?" Roommate: "Yeah." Robinson: "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Well, that's, of course, not the case. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson, I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Is that where he stashed the clothes, maybe? Didn't have the ability to or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the fuck will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The fucking messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge uwu on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really fucking sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Robinson, delete this exchange. Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Robinson, you are all I worry about, love. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. So these text messages, okay. First off, a lot of ellipses in them. Lots of ellipses. That does tend to indicate there has been who knows how much that is omitted from the chain, the communication chain, and they are selectively pulling out bits and pieces to reproduce. The authenticity of the text messages. They're going to have multiple ways to verify that these are authentic. They're going to be able to find it in the roommate's phone. They're going to be able to find it in Robinson's phone. They're going to be able to find records of the exchanges happening in the cell records, the phone records. Typically, that won't give you content, but that will show that it will, correspond with the times of messages being sent. Sometimes messages will be present on a server. They will be present on the ISP server, potentially. If you have a cloud backup like Google or iCloud, something like that, often you'll have the text messages backed up there. So a lot of potential ways for them to verify that these are authentic, meaning these are not things that somebody else wrote and planted on the phone or are otherwise, trying to attribute to these individuals. Defense is going to have all that information, go over it with a fine-tooth comb. So the messages, I'm not really concerned about them being able to establish the authenticity, although they're certainly going to review that. What do they mean and why? What's the bigger context? Those are the bigger questions, I think. If the roommate is cooperative, and certainly judging by this, the roommate has been cooperative so far. The roommate is the one who provided all of this to the FBI. Why would they do that, right? Why would they do that? If they were involved, the smartest thing to do would be to not do that, not cooperate, not provide information. Potentially covering up for a third party. Again, it's a question I'm going to have, a reason to think that that there may be the involvement of other individuals, because if I'm the defense, if I can point the finger at somebody else, it might be a way to save my client's life. So I'm going to go through anything that may indicate third party involvement with a fine-tooth comb. And that means I, the defense attorney, Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be digging into this roommate. I'm going to be trying to interview this roommate. I'm going to be seeing what I can find out about this roommate's own um, communications on social media, Discord, those types of platforms. They are describing this as text messages in um, this particular affidavit. And so I don't know if that means SMS. Are we just using that as shorthand for they had a digital communication? Because um, the law enforcement affidavit described Discord messages that they communicated through Discord. So not clear, not sure. That's going to be a question as far as the provenance. We also don't have timestamps for any of them, so we don't know like what is the time frame over which this conversation was happening. It's hard to say because of the truncation of the conversation, the fact that the parts have been omitted, and so what is included here has been specifically selected by the prosecutor to be included. But it does, just taking it at face value, assuming it's not like a massive misrepresentation, it does kind of raise questions to me about potentially some kind of uh, I don't want to say it, potentially some kind of fixation, right? He seems to be very focused on the gun, taking the conversation back to the gun. I mean, I can understand why, like you're going to be really focused on that. But it just is going to make me question if there is anything potentially mentally, cognitively, developmentally going on with how this individual thinks. Those things are always going to be on the table during a death penalty case anyway, because you have to evaluate if there are mitigating circumstances and if the defendant has some type of disorder or diagnosis, then those things can be brought up as mitigation. People don't always see them as mitigating, but it's just something that is going to happen. But it did make me wonder about that, just how much of this conversation is fixated on the rifle. Now I don't know how much of that is truncated, how much of that is just circumstantial, because that's when this conversation is taking place, and that's what his concern at the time is like, get the gun. If I don't get the gun back, I'm going to get caught. And that's probably a fairly good estimate. Although if the parents recognized him on the media anyway, then but finding the gun really seems to have been the link. That was the big link. That was what got dad to recognize, hey, this is a unique gun. Show me a photo of the gun. It's what got their suspicion like really heightened. I would imagine there's probably quite a few people, because that's kind of what always happens when there's a like an APB sort of thing put out for an individual. Let us know if you know this person, if you've seen this person. A lot of people think it looks like their neighbor, their teacher, their whoever. They'll get a lot of tips about who the person possibly is. So parents thinking, oh, it might look like him, may not be enough, but the gun seems to have been the turning point. So in that sense, anyway, his concern that he will get caught if he can't get the gun back seems to be pretty well founded. That, by the way, does not speak well to any kind of like insanity type of defense. It's a very organized thinking kind of process. The search of Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence. During that search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several targets with bullet holes in Robinson's home. Etchings like the etchings found on the shells, that's descriptive, but I would like it to be a little more detailed. In what way are they like the etchings? Is just the fact of an etching, is that enough to say it's like, because they're both etched? Or are there similarities in the etchings themselves? If there's handwriting, is it like, similar? Are there like patterns that you can see how it's done? Any type of analysis like that. I'll be looking at that to see if, this is a strong similarity between these, or if it's just a little bit more circumstantial. Etched cartridges versus etched cartridges. So then he spells out the specific, once again, specific grounds for these individual charges. Count 1, aggravated murder, shooting and killing Charlie Kirk in a manner that exposed others, in addition to Mr. Kirk, to a great risk of death. All the people around and the audience in front and so forth. Discharge of a firearm pertains to shooting toward Mr. Kirk, knowing that doing so would endanger those in the bullet's path. The shot caused serious bodily injury to Mr. Kirk, ultimately resulting in death. It does seem to be kind of a self-explanatory one. Discharge of a firearm. Obstructing justice pertains to Robinson's removal and hiding of the rifle he used to shoot Mr. Kirk. Obstructing justice pertains to Robinson's removal and hiding of the clothing he wore when he shot Mr. Kirk. Count 5, witness tampering pertains to Robinson's statement to his roommate, telling his roommate to delete their text exchange that followed the shooting. Count 6, witness tampering pertains to Robinson's statement to a roommate, telling the roommate, if the police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Oof. I'm still iffy on that one because that seems like I would advise somebody that's going to be questioned by police. And I assure you, I did not shoot Charlie Kirk. But I would tell people, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Count 7, violence committed in the presence of a child, pertains to Robinson's shooting Mr. Kirk in the presence of children under the age of 14 who were visible at the event. Based on the evidence received from Brian Davis of the Utah State Bureau of Investigations, I have reason to believe the defendant committed the offenses as charged herein. And this was filed on September 16th. So that's part of the reason why we have more information fleshed out in this affidavit than we had in the one that was filed by Brian Davis. He had 4 additional days. Okay, Robinson was arrested on September the 12th. And so when you arrest somebody, you gotta file that probable cause affidavit pretty much right away. So that's the information you have exactly at that moment. They had 4 additional days. Presumably that's when they did the DNA testing as well. Because they were able to, so they claim identify Mr. Robinson as the source of all of these different DNA profiles on the gun. They got an exemplar sample from Mr. Robinson. So they've been able to do those comparisons as well. Again, that happened quickly. And the absence of a bullet and a bullet comparison, ballistics comparison, it just seems a little bit surprising to me because in terms of complexity, it's much easier to do that than it is to do like all of these different DNA comparisons. So it's a question I'm going to have when I'm the defense. Where is it? We're surely not just taking it on faith that this rifle is the one that shot Charlie Kirk. There will need to be some kind of, ballistic investigation to reach that conclusion. But so far have heard nothing about it. So that is it, guys, for our documents for today. Like I said, a lot of questions. And so the first real opportunity that we're going to have some of these questions answered is going to be when there is a preliminary hearing on this. I say when because Robinson's attorney has already indicated that they do not intend to waive their right to have a preliminary hearing. And so what that is like in many states, if you don't have a grand jury return an indictment, then the prosecutor can proceed on what's called an information, just a filed charge with an accusation supported by their affidavit of probable cause. But frequently that needs to be vetted, so to speak, by the court through a preliminary hearing. And so it's just a process where the evidence that supports the charge is presented in a public forum. Now, we saw, you guys remember, in the Koberger case, there were the shenanigans. There were the shenanigans with the preliminary hearing because he had also invoked his right for a preliminary hearing, but he waived the right to have it take place in a speedy fashion. Under the Idaho rules, I think they had like 14 days or something to put on the preliminary hearing. And he waived time for that to be delayed. But in the meantime, what happened was the prosecutor went and convened a grand jury and then got the grand jury indictment, which happens behind closed doors and in secret. And because he got the grand jury indictment, therefore you no longer have the right to a preliminary hearing because the charge isn't proceeding just on the prosecutor's information. So it was a little bit of a dirty trick. And what it also did was it served to keep the evidence out of the public eye for a fairly, extended period of time. I mean, really, most of the evidence is really still never was in the public eye because it resolved with a guilty plea. But this particular case, I mean, seems like, yeah, if they wanted to, they could potentially go down that road. Are they going to want to do that, though? I got to tell you, my impression reading this probable cause affidavit, they have a lot more on Tyler Robinson than they had on Bryan Kohberger. And they're likely, we've identified a lot of the different things they're going to be going through in their investigation. They're going to be doing the digital analysis, like we saw with the Kohberger case. They're going to be reviewing the internet searches, the history, the Discord, all of that type of thing. They're going to be looking for the video surveillance, the video canvas, like they also did in Kohberger, and so. It's another bit of a situation where, because the arrest happened fairly promptly after identifying the suspect, a lot of the investigation takes place after the fact. But what they have at this point right now, to me, just my read on it, yeah, there's a lot more corroboration, a lot more reason here to think that Tyler Robinson is involved here than we perhaps had at the probable cause stage with Bryan Kohberger. And so if they have the view that they have a strong case, well, then you typically want to go ahead and present that in court. Like, why not? Why would you not do that? The defense kind of has the same perspective, because if they have reasons to challenge it, they want that in the public eye, but they also want to have they want to be able to get the prosecutor's evidence and their testimony on record. They want an initial bite at the apple. It's a free chance for them to just, from a practical matter, kind of feel out who these witnesses are. How do they handle cross? Is this one a hard one? Is this one an easy one? Can this one be led? Is this one difficult? It helps them prepare for the trial, the ultimate trial, by having that kind of first go at it. It also forces the witnesses, the state's witnesses, to be pinned down to what the facts are, what their interpretation of the facts are, their theory, and so forth. And it really limits their ability to be able to change that, to pivot from that. And so particularly in a case where the investigation is ongoing, that can be advantageous to the defense, because they might get a whole lot of investigation done, new information later down the road that really changes their perspective on things. But if they have already pinned themselves down in an early hearing, now it looks like you're contradicting yourself. And that is going to be admissible in a later trial, because it's prior testimony, and it may be inconsistent, with what they're bringing up in the trial setting. So these are just reasons why potentially both parties, may not have that same incentive as the prosecution in the Kohberger case had, to kind of keep it out of the public eye as long as possible, because it just, keep saying, really was not the strongest case ever. He said he did it, and I'm not arguing. But just in terms of the factual case for it, it was, cleared the probable cause barrier. But after that, it was, it remained rather slim, highly circumstantial. So preliminary hearing, they have, like I said, defense has indicated they don't intend to waive. So we are expecting that hearing to happen. The question is when. And so the next thing up in the case is a hearing on October 30th. It's going to be at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. I am planning to live stream it. Utah is great for for public access through the camera system, to be able to watch trials and stuff. Their laws actually kind of require, if there's a request for proceedings to be televised, So those requests have been put in. The previous hearings have been televised so far. I'm expecting that to continue throughout the case because, of course, this is probably the highest profile criminal case in the country at the moment. So I'll be watching that, but that is not going to be the preliminary hearing itself. It's going to be more in line of like a status conference. Where are we? At the first hearing, attorneys are just starting to be appointed. Discovery is just starting to be provided and so forth. So this is kind of a check-in to see where we're at type of hearing. There may not be a lot happening, but we'll just have to see. Now, one thing that is likely to happen at the hearing, if not in the interim, is that there has been a motion filed that is pending, which is for Mr. Robinson to be able to appear in court in civilian clothing and without shackles. Again, this is something you may remember from the Koberger case, similar type of litigation. In fact, the Robinson motion, they cite the Koberger order. They attach it as an exhibit. It is, however, a little bit, it's a little bit more, it goes a little bit further, I think, than the Koberger defense team went with the specific request to not be shackled. When I was in court in the Koberger case, when it was still over in Moscow, and I did see him there in civilian clothing a couple times. It did look like he probably had a stun belt on. There were just a couple times where like he leaned forward and you can see the imprint through the back of his jacket. Looks like he's probably got a stun belt on. They are specifically raising the questions about things like that, courtroom security measures, arguing that the court can't just defer to the, what the sheriff, what the law enforcement wants to do. They have to make their own independent evaluation of the security need. So I may, if there's interest in it, it's not like necessarily the most exciting substantive thing going on in the case, but it definitely is litigation that's going on in the case. So possibly I'll live stream that and, we can take a look at that if it looks like that is likely to be an issue before this next hearing, which it probably is because they want him there in civilian clothes without shackles. So it's going to have to be resolved before that. At this point in time, it's just the defense motion that's been filed. There haven't been any responsive pleadings or anything like that. So we don't really have the full argument yet, but I am keeping an eye on that. Also, some other potential things to talk about. This defense team, guys, this defense team is legit. Okay, this defense team is legit, not just in terms of their credentials, but in terms of their work product. Oh, it's a pleasure to read. Very, very good stuff. So may have the opportunity to take a look at some of that as well. Don't know if we'll work it all in before the hearing on the 30th, but perhaps. So that is kind of what is on the table at the moment for what's coming up in the case and what I'll be keeping an eye on. I am monitoring the docket. So, if and when things come up to the extent that they are, again, interesting substantive things, I will be pointing them out. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, keep an eye out for the follow-up. This one is going to be fairly long, I expect. There's going to be a lot to it, like I said, because it is a death penalty case. So expect lots of filings, lots of litigation. A lot of times these cases can be a war of attrition. How it's going to resolve is anybody's question. Is it going to resolve by a trial? Is it going to resolve by a plea deal? Are we even going to get to a preliminary hearing? I mean, who knows, Who knows at this point? So a lot of different ways that it could go. So with that, guys, that's the Charlie Kirk case for right now. What's going on? Let's catch up. Let's catch up because it's been a minute. As you've seen, cats have taken over my life. If you follow me on other platforms, you may be aware that it's already about 2 months ago now. I discovered a litter of abandoned, probably orphaned kittens under a juniper bush out in my front yard. They were probably 2 to 3 weeks old at the time. So I became an impromptu kitten rescue and I now have 5 kittens. And yeah, it's been quite fun for everybody. They get along great with the dog, maybe a little bit too well. The dog is quite enthusiastic about the cats. Fortunately, they seem to not mind it. You know, had to bottle feed them and stuff, so I'm basically mom now, which is kind of a nice experience to have with a cat. You know, I had a cat before. I had a cat when I was well, she adopted me, as I think these things tend to happen. She decided that I was her person many years ago when I was living in Tahoe. She escaped from coyotes in my house and then stayed. And so I had her for 15 years, I think. She was about 18 years old when she finally passed away. She was a very sweet cat, but more like a dog. You know, she behaved like a dog. Like she would come when you call her, and just, you know, didn't do that kind of cat things that I normally hear about with cats. So these ones are a little more cat, but they're also my babies, and I'm mommy. So it's just a different vibe. And anyway, lots of fun, and I'm accumulating all kinds of random cat stuff now. So. Speaking of the other platforms, yes, if you are following me on X, I have been hacked. Been hacked. So I'm locked out of the account. I can't get to it. I can't do anything to it. Some crypto scammer got a hold of it and changed all the credentials. So yes, don't sign up for any random crypto scams. I promise you, I will never promote random crypto shit on any of my channels. Don't click on any links if you've already done it. You know, change your credentials, set up two-factor authentication if you haven't already done that. A little bit of a mess. Yes, it's been reported to Twitter. Twitter seems to not care. You would think I'm supposed to be a verified account. You would think they would take policing the verification a little bit more seriously, but nope, I'm just in the queue. So in the meantime, who knows what the account is doing. I don't have a backup, so I'm not, you know, staying caught up on Twitter. I'm just kind of out of it right now. And honestly, I kind of forget like how much more time there is in a day when you don't you don't waste a whole bunch of time just scrolling away. But so that's going on. Fingers crossed that it will get recovered. But I honestly, I really don't know. I remember Adam Waldman, when he got locked out of his account, it was like 2 years before they got it back. So I'm not necessarily holding my breath that anything is going to happen real soon. I may just find myself no longer in the Twitterverse, and that isn't necessarily the worst thing to ever happen. I am still over on Substack. I have fired up a little bit more on that lately. Wrote some pieces on the Irina Zarutska murder, and kind of the mental health system side of all that. Wrote a piece about the Sheriff Steins case over there in Kentucky and kind of what a weird case that's shaping up to be. Working on one right now that is not quite ready to publish, but should be ready in the next few days. And that is on a very interesting First Amendment case that I came across that is a challenge. It's a court access case, the First Amendment court access case, and it's a challenge to residency restrictions. When states have residency restrictions on whether or not you can get public records, and very specifically court records, and kind of how that analysis might not be as favorable as you and I might think and hope it should be and expect it should be. A lot of murkiness in this area. So that is one that I'm working on as well. Otherwise, guys, it's like it just turned fall. We just had our first hard freeze here last night. Well, not hard freeze. I mean, it's probably like, I don't know, an hour maybe that it was frozen. It froze. But otherwise, it's still sunny. It's still beautiful. Our trees are starting to turn. It's that time of year where kind of need to wrap up the garden and the yard and all your last minute projects. And I got to put the bonsais to bed and all that kind of thing. So lots of stuff going on. Last good chance to get out and hike around, get some good pictures of, the great outdoors and beautiful scenery and things like that. So just kind of more life as usual. So I see that we had some folks send in some super chats. I will check those out, guys. Thank you so much. Cookie Doodle, welcome as a new member. Appreciate having you here. MLS, hey Dave, making law simple. How dare you take an analytical approach to this case? Don't you know that it was the CIA? Oh man, I can't keep track of which deep state agency it probably was. Yeah, I don't know. The thing is, the reason why I don't really go down these rabbit holes of like it's the CIA, it's the whoever, is because if it is, you're never going to know anyway. You're never going to know. So, I mean, you can always speculate that it's something like that. Good to see you here, Dave. Law and Order. We back. What up, chat? What up, Andrea? What up, Law and Order? Welcome back. I know it has been a minute. But like I said, I've been kind of drowning in cats in summer and stuff like that. And stuff has gotten away from me. But more happening now, boy. Some other cases I'm looking at just for your interest. Yeah, Mark Sanchez. Oof. That wasn't good, man. That wasn't good. But that one was quite interesting when that happened, mainly just because, you hear Mark Sanchez get stabbed downtown and you think the worst. And then lo and behold, turns out they believe he's the aggressor. Woof. So that's one I'm just kind of collaterally interested in. I don't know if it will actually turn out to be super interesting or not. In many ways seems kind of straightforward, but keeping an eye on it. Courtney Clenny's coming up. I don't know if any of you guys have followed Courtney Clenny. It kind of fell off the map for a long time. She was arrested in 2023, I think, maybe 2022. It's been a while. Yeah, it was 2022. And there's been all of this collateral litigation that's gone on with the case because of shenanigans that the prosecutors engaged in as far as searching and getting access to attorney-client privileged materials that they should not have been looking at. And so that kind of snowballed and turned into a lot of stuff. But that one is gearing up for trial. It's currently set for trial on December the 1st. It's got actually today, it's supposed to be having a kind of status hearing. So I'll have to check and see what's up with that. But this is the case of, it's another Amber Heard case, guys. It's another Darvo DV case is my read on it. She's accused of murdering her ex-boyfriend. Well, he was her boyfriend at the time. Although they were kind of off and on, really. Anyway, she's accused of murdering him by stabbing him. She claims that she was the victim, when she did it in self-defense. Problem is, she's stabbed him twice before, and she's like on video hitting him and, being the aggressor and stuff like that. So it's a case where if it goes forward to trial, and it seems likely that it will, she is going to have to take the stand to present her case, because there really isn't any other way to present a self-defense case. And we'll see if she's a better actress than Amber. That's really all I think it comes down to. So that one, Rex Huerman, guys, Rex Huerman, the accused Long Island serial killer. I have been spending some time getting caught up on that one. There is a lot of long, history to that. The case itself is a little bit difficult to get access to the documents, the information, but I have been trying to get a hold of some of that. The case isn't set for trial yet, so there's still a lot going on with it. But that is something you can expect to hear from me about on some of my channels. And then fingers crossed, if I have time, I'm trying to get caught up on Luigi, but boy, that one's tricky. He's got cases going in 3 different courts, and the federal system. Anytime you have a federal case, it's always a little bit more difficult to catch up anyway, because the volume in federal court is like a river at flood stage, and compared to like the volume in a state court is a little bit more like, anywhere from a very slow to a very powerful garden hose. Like this death penalty case for Charlie Kirk, it's going to be more like a powerful garden hose, but it's nowhere near the volume of a routine federal criminal case. So there's just a huge volume of stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to actually be successful at getting caught up on that or not, but I'm giving it a shot. So those are some of the ones I'm watching right now, guys. I've been reading a lot too. I've been on a real war history kick lately. I don't know why. It's just I don't know why. Just sometimes different things catch my attention. So I reread Band of Brothers. I read it like a million years ago and barely remembered anything. I watched the miniseries. Kind of don't really remember that either. So I just reread that one again. Great book. Screaming Eagles, all that. I read With the Old Breed, which is a book about a private who served in the Marines at Peleliu and at Okinawa, and so World War II era stuff. And now I'm reading About Face, and About Face is this guy Hackworth, who started off as a private and got a battlefield commission and ended up not quite sure yet exactly how his career ended, if it was entirely voluntary or not. But anyway, he ended up as a colonel, but served in both Korea and Vietnam. So been reading stuff like that lately. Speaking of which, reading, if you're interested in any kind of books involving death penalty stuff in Utah, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. The Executioner Song by Norman Mailer is a classic. It's about the life, crimes, trial, death of Gary Gilmore, who was the first person executed in the United States after Furman v. Georgia. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the death penalty was unconstitutional, but then changed their mind and said, you can have it as long as you do it right, basically. So he was the first person put to death after the death penalty was allowed once again. There's also Under the Banner of Heaven, John Krakauer's book. I can't remember the names of those guys. It was two like radical fundamentalist LDS brothers, and they murdered the ex-wife of one of them. And one of them got the death penalty, I believe. So I haven't read that book in a long time, but anyway, it's just a little bit of an interesting one. Idaho does have the shooting squad, by the way, the firing squad. The way it's set up right now is that they can use the firing squad if the chemicals for lethal injection are unavailable, or if lethal injection is declared to be unconstitutional. So the default is lethal injection is the method, but if they can't get the chemicals, which is kind of a common issue with lethal injection states, the manufacturers don't really want to provide it for that purpose, then they can just go ahead and use the firing squad. They have executed folks by firing squad. Gary Gilmore was executed by firing squad, and I think as recently as 2010, somebody in Utah was executed by firing squad. So hey, that's what I've been up to. Thanks for the super chat. Bluebird 711 is a YouTube member. Welcome. Good to see you here. Bluebird, so happy to see you, my friend. If you get a chance at the end, any opinions on Cy Ray not being on the witness list for BK? Confused if that was mitigation only or both. Love you and kittens. Well, if Cy Ray is not on the witness list, then Cy Ray is not helpful to the defense. And so what that tends to imply to me is that whatever information that they were ultimately trying to get in that case from the FBI, the digital information ended up not being favorable to the defense. So always a little bit of an inferential step, but he had kind of held that door open during his testimony anyway. When we heard from Cy Ray, he was testifying at a hearing on a motion to compel because the FBI had not turned over and I think the Moscow police as well had not turned over some of the materials relating to their location analysis, their cell site location analysis of Brian Kohberger's phone. Cy had testified that his opinion is subject to change depending on what the information that was being not turned over actually was. But up to that point, his review of the evidence was that it was exonerating. So my inference from all of this, they got the information and it turned out it was not exonerating. It's my best inference, because otherwise I see no reason why he would not have been on the witness list. Good to see you too. In wings, Andrea, we have missed you terribly. This whole LawTube community has gone full R. Please restore us to sanity. Well, I'm not sure what to say about that. Yeah, I don't know anything about the LawTube community going full R. Lots of good LawTubers out there. Lots of good folks. MLS in here. I think I saw Kurt was in here. Uncivil. Great channels. Always love me some Ian Runkle. Always love me some Emily D. Baker. Always love me some Law Lumber. So plenty of good LawTube out there, guys. But I will say, I did notice, and I was honestly kind of surprised. It doesn't seem like LawTube is following Charlie Kirk. And I wondered, like, am I the first LawTuber that's like really, really looking into Charlie Kirk? I don't know. Not sure. Did Danny Ann direct? Did she look at, I think she might have looked at Charlie Kirk. So guys, lots of good channels out there. But that said, I'm glad to be back. Thank you for being back with me. I appreciate it. Economath. The child was Kirk's daughter who tried to run to her dad after the shot and was left distraught that she couldn't get to him. Well, that would be pretty distraught. It sounded like, from the way that they described it in the affidavits, that they had multiple children, like just in the photo. They could look at photos and video footage of the event, and they could see that children were present, and that's really all that they're going to need to be able to prove that. But yes, if they have facts like this that are present, that are extremely sympathetic to the prosecution, they'll probably present that. Very, very sad, very tragic, very unnecessary. It's just, tough times in America right now. Interesting times, I guess, even potentially worse. But the whole pendulum on free speech has just swung so wildly. Just over decades. But even just in recent times, seems like we're swinging back towards, free speech is okay again. It's okay to say what you think again, and stuff like that. But then things like this happen that make you wonder, is that just an illusion? Is this the dying gasp of a, fascism projection? That's what always stands out to me about something like this. And I don't understand how you advocate anti-fascist stuff while you use actual violence and murder to shut up your enemies. Like, I'm not, how do you not put those together? I don't know. Really don't. But yes, really, really terrible event, and extremely unfortunate. I think that, so much of the world had to see it, like literally see it happen. I know a lot of people didn't want to, but it was everywhere. You opened up your Twitter on September the 10th, and you were probably going to see it. Really unfortunate. Economath. No, not just incriminate, but any statement that would tend to incriminate. Well, yes, I assume this is talking about the Fifth Amendment. Of course, yes, it doesn't have to be actually incriminating, and there's often, no way that you would even know that. But I think the point is that the point that I was making with this was, as far as the roommate having a potential Fifth Amendment right, it turns on incrimination. It turns on, is it going to implicate him in the underlying act? And so if he's innocent, if he doesn't have anything to do with it, if he just learned about it, then there wouldn't be a potential incrimination there. So no Fifth Amendment privilege under those kinds of circumstances. Bradley Burdett, where is the paraffin testing? Well, I mean, there is all kinds of testing that we haven't heard about yet. I would expect no paraffin testing, assuming you're talking about gunshot residue analysis, just because of the time that's elapsed. They arrested him, 2 days, 2.5 days after the shooting. So I think it'd be highly unlikely that there would be gunshot residue still there. But I don't know, maybe they did. But as far as testing concerns, number one is the ballistics. Like, that's just number one. That's absolutely number one in my view, the top one. Why haven't you done that yet? Maybe you have, but you're not telling us about it. Why are you not telling us about it? Because linking Charlie Kirk's murder to that gun, to that specific gun, we got a circumstantial case, sure, just because of everything else. But that particular piece to strengthen that linkage, it may not be critical in the case, but if it's not there and I'm the defense attorney, you can be absolutely sure I'm going to be trying to poke holes in it. I'm going to be trying to use it to my advantage. I'm going to be trying to use that to generate reasonable doubt. So if you can take that off the table as a prosecutor, you should probably be rushing to do that as soon as you can. Economath, even if metadata shows photo after public knowledge, still hard to say it's crazy admission given the 3.5-hour one-way drive from where he lives to UVU. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that there's going to be so much other circumstantial evidence here that ties it together. It's a circumstantial case. Again, nearly all of them are. Most cases are circumstantial in at least some respect, because if they're not, caught on camera, if you don't have a direct confession, you don't have an eyewitness, then you're talking about circumstantial evidence. You're talking about inferences from evidence. So yeah, there's quite a lot here for them to be able to build inferences from. It's enough that I don't really have any concern personally about ooh, is this not the right guy? No, I think it seems pretty clear to me that he was involved. Really, the question I have is just, hey, is he the only guy? And is there going to be enough here for them to be able to, like I said, just potentially poke holes in stuff, ask enough questions, be able to generate any kind of reasonable doubt. So don't know that it would help them a whole lot if it's after the fact. You'd have to, come up with a whole a comprehensive theory of he's crazy and confessed to something he didn't do that accounts for everything else that they have. That would be, probably a pretty remarkable coincidence. So don't know how viable that is. But just certainly if it's before the shooting, it would be a lot more incriminating. Taylor Cook, bit behind, but having carried many a rifle under a sweatshirt towel, it looks like a sweatshirt draped over a rifle-like object what came unwrapped. So yeah, I think this is one of those things. We talked about it before, the thing with video. It's like it came up with Karen Reed, like people see different things, and that's part of the challenge of it. Don't know necessarily what the jury is going to see. It could be a gun. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a gun. It doesn't seem clear. And the part that does seem clear seems to be like the floppy part, which is not gun-like, but it certainly could be something wrapped in a towel. Is it big enough to be a gun? Yeah, it's interesting. And it really did. It looked like that second time we watched the video, it really looked like you see him kind of leaving the one thing with his left hand and then jumping off with the thing in his right hand. It looks like there's a thing in the left hand that he left on the roof and then jumps off with the towel. If I was just interpreting it on the fly based only on what we've seen, that's what it looks like to me. But it could very well be something else. It could be the gun. It could be, yeah, something else that he ditched. I just don't know. Going to be interesting to see how all of that fleshes out. And I do wonder if they're going to have the capability to, or even try to enhance any of this video. They're going to enhance any of this video. That gets into some interesting. That gets into some interesting stuff when they start using that in court. Video enhancement, audio enhancement, these things are not what they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, when it was just a matter of like adjusting levels and things like that, running it through like different, mimic different light spectrums and stuff like that to bring out different details. No, now they use the AI and the interpolation. So it just like guesses what's there. It predicts what would be there and just puts it there. Yeah, interesting to see if they go down that road. But this, you have more experience than with rifles if you've carried one under a sweatshirt or a towel. I have not. I was actually trying to think in my mind, how many times have I actually shot a rifle? I haven't shot a rifle much. I've shot handguns and I've shot shotguns, but I have very little experience with rifles. I remember shooting a rifle when I was probably, I don't know, 8, 9, something like that, out at my grandfather's house in Montana. That was just his little 22 rifle that he ended up giving to my brother. And then I remember shooting rifles. This must have been, I don't know, mid 2010s, somewhere 2010 to 2015 maybe. I went to one of the Women on Target programs that the NRA puts on at the local gun range. Guys, I got to tell you, ladies, if you ever get a chance, these things are fun as hell. Okay. And the reason why, basically what this program is like every NRA gun member in the region, they just show up with like all of their coolest guns and you get to shoot them. The whole point of it is like they're trying to, I don't know if indoctrinate's the right word, but they want women to like be into guns, to be pro guns, because women are mothers, women, if women are into guns, you'll be more likely to like encourage your kids to shoot and hunt, things like that. So they make it this super fun program where you get to shoot some really wild stuff. Anyway, I shot a couple rifles at that, but don't recall that any of them was anything remotely like a 98 Mauser 98 30-06 rifle. So you have a lot more experience with rifles than me, and probably a better basis of knowledge for your perspective on it. Melissa Garcia, glad to have you back on LawTube. Been Insta-stalking for my fix, so thanks for responding. My cat Butters is the same with the dog vibes. Missed ya. It is. That is one of the fun things I think so far about the kittens, is the fact that they're being, introduced to the dog like really super early. So they just have this very normal and very close and affectionate type of relationship. The dog really does seem to think the kittens are, if not her puppies, at least she's like the close aunt. She really does try to nurture them and take care of them and carry them around and all kinds of wild stuff. And the cats cuddle up with her and play with her and things like that. So it's been fun adding to the family. Lucy Fair, glad to see you. Andrea, glad to see you too. Get the kitties fixed early. I learned the hard way. Mating can start as early as 4 months old. Missed your brain. Thanks for today. I did not realize how early they spay and neuter cats. And I'm so glad. Thank you, by the way. Thank you to everybody who's been like, Andrea, get on this ASAP, because I just would have assumed it's kind of like dogs where you need to wait for their development to be pretty well complete before you go in and do the fixing. With the girls, even I remember at one point they were recommending like go through one heat cycle and then spay. I don't think they recommend that anymore, but years ago they did. Anyway, Buffy was she was a show dog, so she was intact for a couple heat cycles before we fixed her. And it's different apparently with cats. They like grow differently, mature differently. It's totally different thing. I do not want boys that spray. That would be awful. Yeah, don't want any of that. So I wouldn't have known. I would not have known. The kitties have not been in for their first shots yet. They go next week. So I will talk to the vet about about all that, getting that lined up in the time frame and stuff. So appreciate all of you cat people having my back. Making sure I know what I need to be looking out for, because that is a big one for sure. Law Kong Express. His dad recognized the gun. How about that towel? Towels are typically pretty nondescript, but possible, yeah. If somebody could have ID'd or recognized the towel. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's necessarily anything super unique about the towel, but maybe the roommate is who I would expect to recognize the towel. Dad is not going to necessarily know what towels, you have in your house, your son has in his house, but the roommate, you would expect to know what towels they have in the house. So definitely another possible connection there. Torin 3, your braid is set up and 9 moves in. Oh, that is awesome, Torin. Torin is making me this awesome braid. It's going to have cats. It's going to have piranha with the piranha whales in the back. It's going to have boxing gloves on it. I cannot wait to see it and show it off to you guys. I'm very, very excited. I watched part of the setup for how it works, and it is a very intricate, fascinating looking process. So thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. Pamela Campbell, really missed you. Happy you're back. Backs. I'm happy to be back. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for being here with me, guys. Hey, it's not going to be a gazillion hour live stream today. No need for it. But yeah, still a lot of stuff to go through with this case and a lot more to come. So I do expect that we will be doing this again. And hey, I really appreciate all of you being back. It's a little bit, I mean, I always cross my fingers like, ooh, I've been away for a little bit. Is it going to be like getting back on a bike? Is it going to be that easy? Ugh. Always a little bit nervous, but seems like it went okay. No major tech issues, nothing like that. Really appreciate seeing all of you guys back here. I hope you guys had wonderful summers. We are starting to get into the dark season. So, hey, if you need your vitamin D, make sure you're getting on that. Those of you like me in the northern part of the world, starting to be that time of year where vitamin D gets to be in a pretty short supply. So good one to be catching up on. But otherwise, I like to get as much time outside as I can, because the days get so short. Days are getting short. Haven't even changed the clocks yet, man. And it's like 7 when the sun is coming up. It's kind of crazy. But it only gets darker from here. So hey, that means there's not a lot to do but read cases and catch up on things, and then perhaps come and talk about it on YouTube. So thank you all for joining me, welcoming me back. I really do appreciate it. It's been a wonderful time, but I am ready to kind of kick things back into gear and get a little bit more active on here. So thank you all so much. Summer is so good to see you. Welcome back. Good to see you too. It's good to see so many familiar names flying through the chat. It's just one of my favorite things about LawTube. It's just the community, people that you meet. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and check out. Appreciate you all. Take care of yourselves. Look out for each other. Speak freely. Encourage others to speak freely. I feel like that's going to maybe need to be a theme rising out of a case like this. So, we got to figure out ways to talk to each other even when we don't agree, because this is definitely not the answer. So I will be back soon. Stay notified if that's your thing. If you want to do that, I'll make sure you get a notification next time I get the live stream set up. So I will be back, and I will see you guys again soon. Take care, everyone.